motion to approve April 2nd minutes. Second.
Mr. Fight?
That's it, would you?
Mr. Stern? Yeah. Mr. Fisher?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll go ahead and review the April reports. April represents 1/3 of the way through the year, so when looking at these reports, 33% is the benchmark I'm looking for to see anything that's over or under of note that we might just chat about. So revenue status report we'll look at first. First line item, the real estate taxes in the general fund. Just by way of reminder, that comes twice a year, so 50% will be the number we'll be looking at for that one, so that did come in a little bit higher than what was budgeted. The municipal income tax is at 45% of what was projected for the year, so that's running a little ahead. Property tax allocation is a homestead rollback. That also comes twice a year, and the first half is typically higher than the second half, so to see that at 60% is really kind of right on the money for this time of year. Then the 1,611 and 612 are mayor's court fees, and you can see that those are running slightly ahead of budget for this point in the year. And 1,619 is also part of that. That one's also 47% is ahead of the budget. Zoning is running well ahead of what was projected. Now, it is seasonal, so that'll slow down at the end of the year, but for this point in the year, the zoning activity has been very good. And same with the interest revenue. It's at 45% of what was projected for the year. So I would expect it will eclipse that depending on when some of the investments mature and what they renew at. We're not going to have any trouble eclipsing our budget on the interest revenue. On page 2, the 2 street funds, just showing that they're pretty much right on the money. They're within 1% of what was projected for this point in the year. On page 3, the only item that I have of note is the zoning fees that are the portion of the new home permits that is going into the Parks and Recreation Fund. That's at 50% of what we budgeted for the year, so that's very good for the folks that are putting on events for Parks and Recreation. Doesn't look like we're going to have any trouble meeting that budget. On page 4, the police district funds. There again, that's a levy, so that money comes twice a year, so you would want that to be at least 50%. That's currently at 58%. However, the homestead rollback portion is at 23%, and we would normally look for 50% on that. So I think the explanation to that is those 2 figures, those budget figures, are actually given to us by the county auditor. Those are certified by them, and I think they're off in the regard that a few years back, the state changed the law that any new levies, they no longer participate in the homestead rollback. In years gone by, you did a levy and the residents still got the benefit of the homestead and rollback, but that is no longer the case and hasn't been for the past, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. So I think their estimate for the tax allocation is high, and their estimate for the real estate, the total's the same. It's the same pot of money. We just have to put it on 2 different lines. So it'll be okay at the end of the year, but those 2 lines are just going to be out a little bit compared to what they should be, based on the fact that when the police levy was renewed a few years ago, I believe the county's still calculating homestead rollback on that. That should not be the case. So we're not going to make the second line, we won't make, and that's what's making the first line look over budget. But the total should be the same. I didn't have anything on page 5 that I thought was noteworthy, nor 6 or 7. So unless anybody has any questions on the revenue status report, we'll take a quick look at the appropriation status report. And on that, first line item is 1,130, electricity at 130, which stands for streetlights. And Joel's not here to ask, but I'm assuming that the bill, that usually is pretty much right on the money. So if it's at 18%, that tells me that the bill hasn't been received yet. So I'm sure that will catch up. Second line item, 1,410, contractual services, 410 is for zoning, and that's the budget for paying the company that's taking care of the zoning issues, and that's about 5% of the budget for this point in the year. The next item I've got highlighted, 1,715. 715 stands for council and mayor, and those contractual services are, it's not a big line at all, it's only $3,000 for the year, but that one's running a little over for this point in the year. And a little bit farther down there, 1,720. 720 stands for mayor's court. The legal fees attributed to the mayor's court are well under budget for this time of year. They're only showing 17%. On page 2, the first item I've got highlighted is 1,725, which is the fiscal officer's department. His office supplies were a little high. I know he had to order some toner, and that we don't have. It's not a big line item, so when you have to order toner, that makes it jump up. But he usually only has to do that once per year, so that should come back in line. 1,730 is lands and buildings, which basically means anything that doesn't specifically fit in any of his other subsets goes into 730. So the contractual services on there is a little over, as well as the supplies. The supplies were the percentage was higher. It's coming closer to coming into budget, and I'm assuming it will come back down. The next line item, though, 1,750, the accounting and legal fees continues to run high. It's at 48% for the year. It's 15 percentage points over. We'll keep an eye on that, depending on how those bills transpire. I don't know whether our $65,000 appropriation will be enough. Later in the year, we may have to raise that figure. On page 3, the first street fund, the 2011, the contractual services line is running a little over for this point in the year. I remember us talking about it last month. I don't remember what the expenditure was for. It was there last month as well. On page 4, the fund 2031 is the cemetery fund. It's only at 15% of its expenditures so far for the year. And same with the Parks and Recreation Fund. It's well under budget at 15% for this point in the year. Of course, that's subject to change whenever their event schedule kicks in. Bottom of page 4 there, the police district, their payroll is running about 11 percentage points under what was appropriated. Their tax collections fees are at 51%. Those come twice a year, so it's not alarming to see it at 51%, even though that would normally would look high, but that's one we just use twice per year. On page 5, continuing on the police fund, their contractual services line is about 4 percentage points over budget. But overall, the rest of their activity looks very good as far as what their appropriations call for. I don't have anything on page 6. On page 7, the fire protection fund, I just wanted to point out that that's a contract that's paid once a year, I believe in October. So you don't see, the only monies that have been spent so far out of that fund have been for the tax collection fees and a little something of miscellaneous nature. That'll stay very, very low until the fall when the check for the $384,000 is written at one time. Don't have anything on page 8. On page 9, Fund 4904, the Premier TIF Fund. The check was written to the county engineer for the bid amount That's why you see that 95% of that money has been spent. That was all in one check. What's it called, the Transportation District that is facilitating that construction required that money be in their hands before they started the work. So we delivered that check to the county engineer's office a couple of weeks ago so that they could commence that work. So that leaves us about $87,000 unencumbered in that fund. So just by way of reminder, should there be any change orders or any cost overruns in excess of that $87,000, then any money above that would have to come from the general fund in order to complete that project. And that was everything I thought was noteworthy on the appropriations. So we'll take a quick look at the cash summary by fund report. We've got a few things highlighted there. And the last two reports is the payment listing for the month and the payroll. We don't typically review those. They're just there for your review if you choose to. The general fund that highlighted so far this year has received $402,000. We've expended $181,000. And then I always like to point out the cyclical nature of the street funds. You don't spend a lot of money other than clearing roads in the wintertime. The majority of the money is spent on repairs and paving in the summer, so it's not uncommon to see those funds go up the balances go up early in the year and then go down throughout the summer as street work is actually able to be performed. So you can see that Fund 2011 has gone up about $8,000. 2021 has gone up about $1,000. The police district has received right at $405,000, has spent $159,000. There again, they get their money twice per year. So you always see that large influx of money in March. That'll be spent back down, and then another influx of money in August, and then it gets spent back down. So it's not unusual to see that look lopsided at this point in the year. By August, those numbers will be closer together, and then August you'll get another infusion, and then by the end of the year it works out. Fund 2101 is also a street fund. It has actually dropped $3,000. We've used that to pay for some supplies for during the winter. The Fire Protection Fund 2901, same as the police, same explanation as the police district. It gets its money twice per year. The only money that's been spent out of there is for the tax collection fees. All of that money will go in one check in October. Then lastly, there at the bottom, you can see the Premier TIF fund started the year with $1,928,000. It is now down to $90,000. And this is by virtue of the fact that we wrote that very large check for that bid amount for that street project. Overall, the village's funds totaled $3,734,000 on January 1, and as of the end of April, there were $2,664,000, largely due to that large check that was written for the Premier project. So, besides the reports, the only other thing I wanted to mention is that Joel and I are working on the 2020 tax budget that will be reviewed by finance and then must be approved by council by July 15th, must be in the hands of the county auditor by July 20th. So, outside of that, that was all that I had to report this evening, unless there's any questions.
So you feel we're on track with where we should be?
Yeah, everything's looking pretty normal for this time.
Any questions? Mr. Rossi?
Are these the bills that will be paid at the next council meeting? Or will this
Those
be
were the
revised?
checks that were cut in April.
Okay, so these have already been
Yes.
approved? Perfect,
They've been paid.
okay.
So that check that was for Premier, what did that all cover? I mean, what was it used for and paid for?
That was the bid amount to put in the road for the project. I'm assuming there's more to it than that, but
But the majority is whoever the contractor got low bid, went out for bids and They were low bid at 1.84 or something like that, whatever that check amount was.
So it's costing that much money to put a road in?
Mhm.
So we didn't do the bids, the Claremont,
County did bids.
okay.
But we're paying to put the roads in, not the developer or anything like that?
Bonds were sold, and it's a TIF district was created to be recaptured through the real estate taxes over the course of 10 years.
Okay, the big elephant in the room, the village dissolves in November, who's responsible for that $2.1 million?
I didn't know. I'm not familiar with that process, to tell you the truth. Obviously, something would have to be done. I've read where in other areas of the state where issues like that go to the court system for the right word I'm looking for settlement. I don't know what word I'm trying to say, but typically, like with utility systems and that, they go through the court system, the judge decides who does what.
Right, but since we paid for it, the village has paid for it already, so.
So we own
Well, the village has paid for it, but they paid for it with bond money. They paid for
Right.
it with borrowed money. So,
Okay, and these are questions you probably, I don't know that you can answer. Would that tip, since it's in Pierce, then transfer over to Pierce?
I don't think I can definitively answer that, but I think that's a fair assumption.
Okay. I just want to know in case somebody asks. Because that's a big chunk of money people are gonna.
I would say it would likely be up to a judge to decide.
Is there any way to know what our debt is total?
The village's debt?
Yeah.
Sure.
You walked in and we're gonna put you to work, Phil. Just while he's looking at that, real quick, I just, for the salaries for the mayor's staff is 97,846. Does that include you and Joel? Can you tell me, like, what salaries are included in that?
Which line are you referring to?
That is, oh, you're killing me, Phil. It is 1,710,162.
What page is
Oh, it's on the very first
On the
page.
appropriations report?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
1,710 what?
162? It was,
Oh, yeah. Money was added to that line when the decision was made to hire a village administrator.
so we've added money for somebody we haven't hired yet.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay,
You can't hire them unless the appropriations are in place.
okay. So that has to be done prior to
Absolutely.
the offer.
Absolutely.
So is that,
I mean, if you don't spend it, there's no harm, no foul.
okay. But that doesn't include anybody else but the administrator?
John, that's right.
Yeah, that's right, because I thought it was lower before, okay. Thank you.
Any new business? Mayor?
When we file the annual financial report every year, we have to list the village's debt as of December 31st. So what I'm going to give you will be the listing for December 31st, 2018.
It just has to be done yearly? Or
It has to be
is it
filed with
quarter-
the state with our annual financial report.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. At the end of 2018, and this one is, I believe, a 20-year one will be winding down. The traffic light that's right out here, the Oak Street traffic light, we owe $10,350 on. The Kroger TIF project has a balance of $380,000. The Village Hall is still at $550,000. We have an equipment building bond. It was money that was borrowed to buy the skid steer and to build the street barn. There's a $75,000 balance on that. The Lori Lane development has a balance of $145,981.12. And the 2018 International Dump Truck had a balance of $136,283.98. And the Premier TIF at the end of the year was $1,975,000. Of course, now so far this year, we've written a check for the traffic light that's right out here, the Oak Street traffic light. We owe $10,350 on. The Kroger TIF project has a balance of $380,000. The Village Hall is still at $550,000. We have an equipment building bond. It was money that was borrowed to buy the skid steer and build the street barn. There's a $75,000 balance on that. The Lori Lane development has a balance of $145,981.12. And the 2018 International Dump Truck had a balance of $136,283.98. And the Premier TIF at the end of the year was $1,975,000. Of course, now so far this year, we've written a check for a little over $1.8 million for the TIF project, and I believe a substantial payment was made on the dump truck in January, was it not, Joel?
29,000.
It's a five-year loan, so 20% of that was paid off in January.
How much was that, Joel? I'm sorry.
29,000.
29, okay.
Those were the only two payments that have been made on those debts so to that point so far this year.
Okay.
The Lori Lane, what that consists of, the improvement, I believe, is that land that's in front of Kroger's?
There was some demolition, I believe,
Yep.
involved with
Apartment
that.
building?
Yes, as part of that project.
And how much was that again?
So far this year.
Okay.
The Lori Lane, what that consists of, the improvement, I believe, is that land that's in front of Kroger's?
There was some demolition, I believe,
Yep.
involved with
Apartment
that.
building?
Yes, as part of that project.
And how much was that again?
140.
145,981. That would have been for the cost of purchasing it and demolishing it.
The land plus demolish? Okay.
So we paid down on it because originally it was 225.
We have made payments on that.
Yeah.
That's paid by TIF dollars from the Kroger TIF. So that's what's paying for that. So we can eventually do an alignment on that road so we can straighten, you know how it kind of jogs. Eventually we'll be able to move that lane over, straighten all that out.
Now the land where I call it the brick area with the movie sign.
The old Froggers.
Yeah, Kroger's. Yeah, some people refer.
There's no debt associated with that.
So was there original purchase for that? Give them-
Yeah, I don't remember,
But I know it's
how
been
much,
some
but
time.
Yeah.
I got the answer.
I'm just trying to,
I got the answer for that at home.
yeah, you know, with
You
the,
want sent that to me?
I'm trying to remember because that
was bought for the road widening,
I didn't think.
for the staging area, and actually the money that the TIF brings in, generates, can be paid back to the village for what the village had to pay. It's like 64, 65,000.
I was gonna say, I thought it was in the neighborhood.
Yeah, it was something like that. So that money can be paid back through the TIF fund also.
And all of those issues, except the last two, had partial retirements in 2018. The dump truck did not, because the first payment wasn't due until January of this year. The Premier TIF did not because that was new. last year. All the other ones had, well, the Village Hall had no principal payment on it, but the traffic light payments are $4,140 a year. $70,000 is the annual payment on the Kroger TIF debt, and $10,000 on the equipment and building bond. The dump truck was $25,114. Oh, that's Lori Lane, I'm sorry. No, Lori Lane, principal paid off last year was $25,114.
For us dummies in the back here, what's the TIF fund? Can you explain that? Can you just quick breakdown? When you keep saying it's TIF fund,
It stands for tax increment financing, which means a district is created, and then 75% of the taxes for 10 years are collected and remitted to the village and used to pay off the cost of it can only be used for infrastructure, can't be used for payroll or anything like that. So it's used to finance the necessary infrastructure improvements to enable the project.
thank you.
So if we can, what report is that, if I want to do a records
It's
request?
schedule of outstanding debt.
Then, say if that was, I'm just using rough numbers, say if that all totaled up to $2.3 million, do we have assets currently with the village as it stands right now to support that?
Well, I mean, that's a moving target, of course, because you got weekly payroll and so on and so forth. The total at the end of 2018 was $3,272,615, of which the 1.8 and change has been paid off. So you're probably closer to 1.4 million. And, well, I guess the answer to that honestly would be no. And the reason I say that, I was thinking total dollars, and it just hit me, you can't do that because all the funds are restricted except the general fund. So we couldn't use police money to pay off any of this debt.
And we're relying on future TIF for Premier to pay down the
Absolutely.
$1.9 million,
Yeah,
or the
that's
2.1 million. Okay.
And that's all figured out by people that do the TIF bonds.
Mhm.
They calculate what that'll generate the next 10 years in order for you to be able to borrow the money to pay it back.
You couldn't sell the bonds to an investor if they didn't have those numbers up front to support the repayment schedule.
Yeah. I just look at it because if we use the house alone, at $550,000 over, a 5-year, 6-year span, we not paid $1 to the principal, and we just keep on, I call it like refining, or just, you just keep on rolling it over and over and over and over. And, that just tells me that, we have a lot of debt with very few assets.
Well, that one's the exception to the rule. That's the only one that did not have any principal paid off on it.
Right.
Now, as a side note, the request for proposals did go out last Friday on that. Bond broker is shopping those. I've not heard back from her so far this week to see.
Would that be for the 250 or the full 100? Because there was talk about paying
The decision was,
250.
the decision was made to pay, the proposal went out like this, that to retire 50,000 this year. In other words, instead of borrowing 550, we would borrow 500. And it's set up on a it won't be what's called an anticipation note, which is what it's been so far. It will be set up on the 5-year retirement plan that will pay down the 50,000, and then there will be 100,000 principal paid each year for 5 years plus the interest charges. So it will be paid off in 5 years. That was the proposal that went out on Friday.
Now, being the finance committee and the council members that are currently here, do you, being on the finance committee, do you have a plan of action or a thought about the 125 being, resurfaced anytime, at least in my, in my lifetime?
We've been hearing a lot of different stories from the state. Todd talked with ODOT again, and they put it back up on the board for repair 2022.
2021 right now, they're going to resurface it. Andy and myself met with ODOT, and we drove the road. They projected it out And we were for 2021 for repaving.
Mhm.
But now in May, the governor has changed everything because of the new tax coming out. So we won't know until they come out with the new numbers where we'll stand. It could be better or it could be worse.
Right.
So,
With that being said, would that be state who would do the pay
yes,
for it?
they would.
Then why did we ask for the 1% earnings tax based on the repaid 125?
Wasn't all on,
But there was-
it wasn't
that was-
all, but
that
there
was-
was some, because we were told at one point they would not.
Yeah.
Now they've had a change.
But that was one of the key reasons of saying why the 1% had to be brought in to additional money.
Well, it was roads in general, not
Right.
just 125, all the roads in the village. So actually, it's kind of a godsend that they came forward now and said, hey, we may put you on. But here's another issue they may have. If it gets bumped further out and we become a city, then it may throw it into a whole new bracket.
Plus you had an outgoing governor, he had a different plan
Oh, yeah.
than the guy coming
Yeah,
in.
he's got a whole different
Yeah.
tune. But, you know, I just think, you know, for the folks in the camera here, you know, and the whole selling point of the 1% was, you know, how many people's come up here at meetings asking when the roads are going to be repaid? It's specifically 125. But now we're saying it's going to be supported by the state 2021-22. So in other words, we adopted an earnings tax for more than just one reason, just to repay 125. So in other words, we got that to pay off the house over the next 5 years. We're going to use that monies. So in other words, we did not clue people in the right way.
I think we did. I think that's a matter of opinion. We have $1 million worth of road repair just in the village without 125, not including parks.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a
But you
whole
just
lot of
spent-
issues.
But see, I get what you're saying, but you're not justifying spending $2.1 million on an intersection, and you just said it was just for the intersection.
It's for the roadway and the intersection.
Okay,
correct.
but how much of a roadway? What are we talking, 2 miles, 8 miles? How much of the roadway?
You really need to go out and price what a road costs to build.
Okay, but I don't want you to, what I want you to do is listen to what I'm actually saying.
I'm listening.
Is that how you can justify a small amount compared to a huge amount of roadway. And I keep trying to get it to where you all can understand it, but you pull that back on how much stuff costs. I understand what it costs, but people, it's like you buying 5 apples for $150, but you could have bought 1 apple and it could have gone, the ends doesn't justify the means, because I seen you approach the commissioners, and even though I found the whole thing ironic that you were up there begging them for money while you tax us, and that was your words, not mine, that why can't you tell the people that you're gonna take away 0.5% of the earnings tax? Why don't you get,
Let's
What I'm
address the
saying-
commissioners. The commissioners, I am the president of the Mayor's Association.
Vice President?
I'm the president. The local government fund is what they're taking away.
I understand,
And
they
they
took
want to
that away
take
years
more away. So
ago.
I wasn't begging for any money.
You were asking
We
to
were
come to the
asking them to
table.
reevaluate
Right, but you
how
were-
they came to their
Did you
decision.
ask them to come to the table?
Yes.
Well, I find that rich coming from you when you won't even talk to your own residents.
I think it's two complete different
No, it's
subjects
not.
we're talking
You're good,
about.
you want to come to the
Local
table to
government
get more
funding is
money.
completely different.
But you're going to the table to try to get more money because Claremont County's gonna take 50% off of the top,
Which they
correct?
always do.
So why do you wanna go to the table?
Because that
You want more
formula has
money.
been changed now. It was never like that.
It's only been changed a year.
Yeah,
And you
right. Well,
said
it
2
hasn't-
years.
it hasn't
You
been
said
changed.
2 years, and that was
I don't
wrong.
think I even said
Yes, you
that.
did. You can go back and watch Chris Hicks.
That's a whole nother.
But what I'm
issue.
saying is you're asking the county for more money. You're asking the residents for more money. So give us back something. The people you keep saying that you represent. Hey, you know what? If we get this money, we're gonna knock this down to 0.5%. We're gonna save you some money. Because the state's gonna come in 2000, whatever it's gonna be, and pave the roads.
And that's-
So now we don't need that money.
And you gotta remember, it takes 3 years to get all that income.
Right, so then
Right.
tell them
you
you're gonna
assume-
cut it in
you Tell everybody we
2021.
have this $1 million from that, we do not have it.
No, it's not gonna
And we
happen.
don't even know if the state's gonna come through with the paving.
Watch out, Lord.
Right. So what I'm saying, you and I met last year, and you told me one of the key reasons to having the earnings tax is because the village was going broke.
Yeah.
Yes, you know what, I have it on my phone.
That's fine, but
Yeah, you know what, I
No,
can
we-
play it.
we
If we got
need
time, I'll
money.
play
But
it.
see,
But
Tom,
here's my point.
this is actually a finance meeting, so it's
we
not,
were talking about finance.
No, but
but
what-
you're not listening.
But what I want to, and I'll say one other thing, and I want council, I would love some input from not just, for the members of this committee. We got the earnings tax, the 1% earnings tax based on deception. Because we proposed that we needed all this monies to, you even said, do you realize how much it's going to cost to repay 125? Derek Campbell, who was on council at the time, gave a good
Very good
view,
reason why.
a good view of what it was going to take.
Just
For the
just to do the streets, not including 125 is $1 million.
That's not what he said.
That's not what he said. And then he was also talking about the patchwork that was being done, how much it was costing, and moving forward over the 3-year period when the earnings tax came to its full dollar, how much it was going to cost. But if it's not going to be used and the state's going to pay for it, then you could rescind the 1% earnings tax.
Well, we're not sure they are.
Yeah.
We just sat right here and said they projected it.
Right,
Doesn't mean they're gonna do it.
right. But
I think he's asking if they did pay for it, is that a consideration to rescind that tax? Or instead of making payments, instead of requiring quarterly prepayments, doing it at the end of the year like you do everything else when it comes to taxes, and or giving us credit for the tax that we pay to other municipalities? Because quite honestly.
That would be a council question at that time.
But
I
wouldn't
can't believe it
finance
hasn't come
suggest
up
that to
to
council?
council
Wouldn't
I think
finance?
that's something to evaluate when we find out what the state's going to do.
What I'm asking y'all is to give the people something to chew on.
Sure.
That's what I'm asking. I've been asking this all along. And I get, look, believe it or not, you guys got two fronts now, unfortunately for you guys. Because you gotta save a village, and it's gonna take us residents to do that.
I
And-
think
and
there's
if
no
you all
problem
don't-
reevaluating that after we find out. At the end of the day, I'd rather the state do the paving than the village.
Well,
Okay.
and the state would have done it 6 years ago.
I don't know,
I understand, Andrew, I understand.
but I have no problem with reevaluating that when we find out what the state's gonna do.
Then give something. Tell the
Yeah,
people
no, I
that.
think there needs to be information that goes out on a lot of things.
yeah, we adopted in 2018. We're not going to get an answer until 2021 at best. So we're going to go 3 years taxing 1% earnings tax based on an assumption.
So, I think we'll know what the
Based on an
state.
assumption, because
Wait, hold on.
the 1% earnings tax was supposed to go for.
I can't go back and speak for what was done before I came on board, I understand that. So
Right.
I can't justify or nullify, okay? I
Right.
understand that. But I think we wait and see, just logically, we wait and see what the state decides after they've changed everything with the new governor, the taxes come in and they're reevaluating the roads and everything else. I think that at the very least, we wait and see what the state's going to do, see what their time frame is, and go from there.
Okay,
Do you guys realize you don't have a year? You
Yeah.
have 6 months.
I understand that.
Okay.
But you're wanting me to
I want that
Yeah,
out there.
but you're wanting me to make a decision now based on a lot of uncertainties, and that makes it quite.
And that's what we have to do with the Rita. We have to base stuff on uncertainties.
Yes, we do.
So,
Yes, we do.
we're not asking you anything that you all aren't asking us to do.
yeah.
But that's,
In a way, well, I understand what you're saying, okay? But in a way, it's like me setting more personally, okay? I guess I look at it this way. maybe I don't have the view that you have. If I know that there is a possibility of a bill coming up, I start setting more in savings now to meet that need. If I don't need it, then I can.
Not if you're living paycheck by paycheck.
I live
you can't
paycheck
do
by
that.
paycheck, probably more than a lot, okay? A pastor's salary is not $1 million a year.
I
okay?
completely understand, but you're looking out for you when y'all should be looking out for
No.
the 5,000-6,000 residents you have. That's your job.
I
That-
don't disagree
you
with
see
you,
what I'm
and that's
saying?
what I'm saying. I can't go back and say,
You're right,
this
but now
was the
you have to
reason.
fix it.
Listen to me, please, okay?
Absolutely.
I've not interrupted you, I just, give me a second to speak.
Okay.
You're asking me to go back and justify what was done before I came on board. I can't do that. There's no way that I can do that. I don't remember exactly everything that was said. I can't justify or nullify that. Only thing I can do is work from the point that I am at now. And if you want me to make an outright rash decision on the spur of a moment, I think that's quite foolish.
To be
Okay.
fair, I don't think she's asking you, I think she's asking
I
everybody.
understand that, but she was addressing me.
Well,
that's
because you were the only one
Yeah,
talking.
no,
so
I understand. But what I'm saying is, don't think that I'm sitting here gonna make a rash decision and say, well, just do away with it and we'll pray that the state does it.
Right.
I think that's foolish.
Don't be wrong, this is not directed just at you.
No, but,
At the committee. But, okay, so if we could look at the 3 years, so if we get to 2021, just hypothetically, we get to 2021, the state says, you know what, we're gonna repay.
sure.
So, if you guys are still on council, do you plan on giving everyone a refund?
Actually, I like the thought, that we can repave, get the village or the city, whatever. We're building for the future, and we don't know. So I'd like to get to the point where all of our streets are repaired, our parks are immaculate.
Yeah.
They're not, there's a lot, they're outdated, there's a lot of stuff, the equipment's failing.
Right.
We don't have the funds.
But in 2009, when I was on council,
But we're sitting here catching the ball on things that's been in progress for years. The trucks that broke down in maintenance, the maintenance building that got tore down, those all have to be replaced. So that takes funds. We had insurance money, it was inadequate to do that. We knew that. But I'd like to get to the point where, say that the 1% is too much, we can roll it back to 0.5%. If that's the case, and yeah, I would favor that. But right now, we don't know.
Tim,
Well,
I'll tell you from my personal perspective, and Todd can tell you, I've said this to him. If everything comes into alignment, if the state comes along and says, we're gonna do 125, and that's money we don't have to spend, I would probably be the first person on council to say, guys, we need to look at that and cut it back, reduce it, do whatever we need to do to put it in alignment.
Right.
Because we certainly don't need to build $10 million in the bank. Okay,
Right.
that's not the purpose. And I would be the first one on council to advocate a reduction, if not at that point an elimination if it were feasible. But we've got to have the progress that we've got going on right now to increase and substantiate some of the other tax bases, from the property taxes, from wherever they all come from. We've got to be able to have that growth and progress in order to do that. I'd be the first one to say, guys, I don't want to pay my 1%.
I don't care to pay 1%. As long as,
I concur.
yeah,
I don't mind paying 1%, but I would like credit for the municipalities that are taking money, since I work in Norwood, and that wasn't given to us. And I think that doesn't sit well with a lot of your
Sure.
residents.
And I can't go back and, again, understand where I'm at coming in really January. I can't nullify or justify what was said in order to do all that.
Is rescinding even an option in 3 years, if it's evaluated, we don't need it, whatever, is rescinding even an option?
council.
Why would it not be if we don't need it?
I don't know, I was under the impression that it was passed by emergency and there's no getting rid of it.
Council.
Council.
Council can get rid of it.
Yes.
And that's it.
Our
I think
council
can
she
get
touched
rid of
on
it
a
at
good
any time.
point.
Is that correct?
I think
thought it
she
was
touched on a
contract
good
for 5
point.
years.
Why wouldn't council, or not council, finance, thank you, recommend now see what you did? You said,
I-
for the credit for other municipalities. Why would that's y'all that's y'all saving grace right now, is to offer the residents something, a credit, and you can do that. You can go to council in 3 weeks, 2 weeks, whatever it is, and say, you know what? We need to give the public something. Because the people that are sitting here on Thursdays at your meetings are not your friends. They're not, I mean, without using the terminology, I'm surprised that people aren't up here with pitchforks and,
Well, that's a threat.
and that's coming, and that's kind of my thing, and you said you can't go back.
I said I can't go back and justify or
Right.
nullify.
But let me
What was
take
said
you
is-
back 8 years, 9 years, when the two of us sat in your seat and told him and the other ones that were on council that we needed the earnings tax, 0.5%, because if we put it away, by the time we got to the point where you are now and you're sitting up there, you could have been thanking me and him
I don't
for not,
disagree.
and everybody else,
I'm not
and you could have said, you know
Sure.
what? No more police levy, no more fire levy, because we've got the money.
Okay.
But,
And
but
I'm
that's
not
what I'm
disagreeing
saying,
with what you're
you
saying.
can't say can go back, but we have to go back because it was screwed up from that point on.
Okay, and here's what I'm saying, if I can go back and fix that, great, I can't.
But you can fix it now.
I can do my part, yes, which is what I have no problem trying to do.
Yeah. And this is finance, I'm trying to stay on finance. All council disapproved this sweeper. I don't know what the value is because we're not privy to that. Let's say if it's $500,000, I'm just throwing a number. Because we don't know. You voted for it, you voted for it, you voted for it. We do not need that. We don't need it. We can't sweep streets that
You can't drive
that you
on.
can't drive on properly right now. Why are we worried about sweeping the street? I mean,
We bought an attachment
right,
to the Bobcat for $6,500, maybe $6,900
Yeah.
to sweep the curbs. We have to start cleaning these curbs
That's what you got maintenance
and getting the
people.
gravel out for. I only have 2 maintenance guys. And by the time they cut grass in the parks and they cut other things and they fix and
Let me
repair.
understand, so you want our 3 maintenance guys to go sweep out with a broom?
we can outsource that like we do grass cutting.
Claremont County
You could do it once a
prisoners
month.
can come do it. They got all kinds of things.
We
You
use
can, you
those
can
guys.
adopt a street, you, think outside the box. You can
No,
adopt
I-
a street, have the street say, hey, we're trying to get people involved so we don't have to spend $6,700. Well, y'all go out and clean out. Hell, I go out and sweep. I do it. I clean my own gutters.
I sweep mine.
Yeah,
So-
so do I.
I mean,
But-
that's the stuff that we're,
I have no
But-
problem with that thought process, but the logic behind it, not everybody's gonna do that.
but the streets.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I don't disagree, I drive it every day as well.
Yeah. I want to make one last statement.
Then I got 2 questions.
But just think about this, and I'm staying on the topic. But we currently, you're saying you can't go back and fix or,
I can
revisit
only
that?
start from,
But we're still going in the reckless way they were then. You guys are spending recklessly. You're giving blank checks to the mayor to go out and get contracts.
Why is doing this?
You, at the last council meeting, that's what you all done. You,
we gave him a blank check to go out and get a
basically,
contract.
basically,
How much were the contracts that you allowed him to
for
sign?
concrete work,
How much was it?
for repaving.
How much was
I
it?
don't have those papers in front of me.
That's
There
my
you go.
point exactly.
I don't
You
have it
have
here with
no
me.
idea what you agreed to,
And honestly, I don't think you knew that night either.
Send them an
because it
email.
has the
And I'm not
amounts.
disrespecting you, that's not my intent. But here's the problem, you guys don't know, and you guys don't sit there and talk and tell the people. We couldn't even get a picture of a piece of playground equipment. Do you know the buzz that came out of our, how many followers we have now?
Too many.
Yeah, it's well up there, almost more than the value of the street sweeper. So with that being said, we can't, the reckless ways of spending, what you're saying you can't go back, is still occurring. Because we're sitting here, we need this passed, yay, 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 yay. We never hear a nay. We never hear say, you know what? what's the value of this? How much does this cost? Before I put my stamp of approval on it, what's this actually costing? That's why I asked this man tonight, what kind of debt are we getting?
I think we
What
did
kind
have
of-
the cost on those ordinances.
Oh, there was, but I'm asking you, how much was it?
Yeah, the playground equipment, off the
No,
top
I
of
know
my
how
head,
much.
I don't have.
No,
those
the
right.
contracts that you open-ended him for a check.
But the thing is that we
That's
asked about.
That's why I'm saying it wasn't open-ended, there
Yes,
was amounts.
Exactly, there was an amount. That's why we're asking. Does
I
anybody
don't-
know what they
What I'm
were?
saying is I don't have that paperwork in front of me, I
But
only
you
have what's
should,
told me tonight.
if I saw it, I'm not on finance, I'm not a council person, but I know the figure because I looked it up.
Okay.
So why, I don't
what is
understand
it?
why nobody knows.
Believe it or not, I don't have the paperwork in front of me right now to give you a specific answer on that.
But that's what I'm saying. Everybody should, do you know what the amounts were?
There's a lot of numbers here in this village to remember
You
exactly.
know what? I look at
every
the same paperwork you do,
Right
and I
here.
go home at
I don't
night,
have that-
and I look at
Excuse
the
me, I
same
chose this meeting. This is
paperwork.
getting out of hand.
No, it's not getting out, what's getting out of
Make,
hand?
take a motion to adjourn.
I just want
Oh,
to
that's-
ask questions.
All I'm asking is,
This-
if you
this
can't
is it.
answer the
We've
question-
been answering your questions and you're getting,
I'm not getting anything.
yes, you are.
Renee,
He's giving us-
I don't know exactly what that amount was
Thank
that
you.
night. I honestly, I'm
I
sitting right,
appreciate
sitting right
the
here right
honesty.
now, I don't know exactly what the amount was, but I promise you, I know exactly where to go get it,
Right.
okay?
Well, I
I mean,
appreciate
that's-
that.
And I
that's-
appreciate
look,
you
that's-
saying that.
That's, when you walk into my place of employment and you got a problem with something and I'm there to help you, it's not my job to know everything, it's my job to know how to
Get
get
it.
you that information. Okay, so for me to say to you, I can sit here and recite to you every number that's gone past me in the last couple of years, I'd be a damned liar. Okay, and I'm not gonna sit and lie to you. I'd be a liar if I told you that I could do that. Now, I've got an uncanny ability when I go to work that I can remember all those damn numbers, okay? I remember
You
how
get
many.
paid more when you
Well,
go
I
there.
remember how many millions of dollars I'm dealing with, okay?
Sure.
But I can't tell you that I remember every single thing that comes through here, but I know where to go back and get it.
And I appreciate that,
That's
you
what I-
telling me to be quiet and that I'm getting out of
Miss Renee,
hand.
that's what I
I'm
was
just
trying to tell you, I
saying.
don't have
Okay.
it.
This is not a debate.
And I get
I
that.
have all that, but I don't have it in front of me.
This is not. a
And
debate.
I'm not speaking to you now. And I get that, and that's why this is the most communication that we've had in forever, and I appreciate you being honest. But I want you to know, and that's why I'm saying that people want to know that you
Yes,
know what
I
the
don't
hell you're
disagree.
signing.
Sure.
Or when you say yay, and then we go outside and Reed goes, you know what, they just signed a blank check for $500,000.
Sure.
And they're like, we don't have any money, we've got an earnings tax, that's all I'm trying
I will
to
try to
explain.
communicate more, from a personal level to you, I will try to communicate more.
And that's, I'm really not here to fight against you guys.
And understand,
I'm really
I'm
not,
not-
It's
listen.
regardless of what y'all think of me, I want what's best for this village, I really,
I don't
really
think
do.
there's anyone in here that says, I want everything destroyed in our village. I think we all want what's best, okay? No, just give me a minute, okay? I will try to be a little more open. How's that?
I appreciate that,
Okay.
Not just to
absolutely.
us.
I'm-
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because
We'll get
You're
the
one
word
that's here
out.
tonight. You're the one
It's
that's
key.
here tonight.
That's key.
So,
Sure.
you
I agree.
have three members of the council sitting right here tonight, and all three of us have said, when we have some more certainty as far as what's gonna happen, all three of us will be in favor of going back and revisiting these issues. I promise you, if I'm still sitting here, I'll go back and revisit those issues. I don't have an issue with doing that. I don't have a problem with doing that. Okay? And Tim, it's not because I don't want to pay the 1%. I mean, who wants to pay more taxes? Were you happy when the governor announced he wanted how 18 cents on
No.
a gallon of gasoline? No, I wasn't happy about that because now you got the White House talking about they want more. So that doesn't make any of us happy. And I think we're all intelligent enough to understand that.
Right.
None of us are so foolish that we think, oh man, we're gonna stick it to them and watch how they smile. Okay, that's not gonna happen.
I have
You
a
know.
question and a statement. When you guys, at the last council meeting, when you're passing everything and you are, you just keep saying yay, 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 and you guys have you have the numbers there in front of you at that point?
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
So it takes, that's the question. The statement is, it takes 2 seconds to say to your residents, we'd like to buy this street sweeper and it costs this amount of money. It's not up for debate, you guys are passing your things.
That's fair, that's fair.
But to be honest and
That's fair.
communicative,
I have even mentioned that, Todd, you know, you and I have talked about that, and I've said we need to make it more simple to even understand, because the general public doesn't always understand exactly why we're passing and what we're passing. And so I have said that, we need to communicate that better.
I
And I
appreciate that.
think-
That's a
I-
fair statement and a fair question. And when we walked out of here the last time, I told Todd there was a couple of things we should have done differently. And one of them was, we should have had some sort of a display for you all to be able to look at the playground equipment that we approved. We should have done that. It's a mistake.
It didn't have to be an emergency. Go ahead.
I got 2 questions, can I get them in?
Yeah.
Really?
Please,
So, I might have.
let her
not-
talk,
not-
okay? I
I
apologize.
might not have heard it clearly or whatever, so for the TIF money on the Premier project, that money can be spent on what? What in that area can that money be spent? on?
Only infrastructure, roadway,
So
light.
roadway, like in front of that particular area on 125?
You could eventually take, if there's any money left after the end of 10 years, yes, you can use that money to move on down 125. Anything that would access that light and that intersection can be
Okay,
used.
okay.
And there's actually TIF attorneys that you have to go to ask, and they say, yes, you can, or no, you can't. It's
Just
not
real
our
quick on
decision.
that, Todd, because I'll lose it if I don't.
She's got the floor.
Damn it, do the 2 TIFs meet? Does Kroger's TIF
I
and
apologize.
the Premier TIFs meet at any point? I know there's like a certain,
There is talk about them meeting right at Woodlands.
okay,
Yes.
so then it would go is it so far down, whatever the frontal is? for
What
the
it ends
TIF?
up being is an attorney's opinion. Okay, can we use that money to go to Chapel now? So what we would have to do is go to the TIF attorney and they would go, yes, you
But
can, or no, you
is that
can't.
not done prior to the TIF? Do not talk or your wife will kill you. I'm just, I don't,
Usually when they do a TIF, they have a list of things that TIF can do.
okay.
Infrastructure, roadway lighting, things like that. It doesn't give how far down that TIF can
Okay,
go.
I just wondered if, I'm sorry, Sue. Sorry.
Can I have your second question, please?
Well, no, I'm still on the
Oh,
TIF.
okay, sorry.
So none of that TIF money can be used anywhere across the street on the mansion, to pay anything on that house? or
No,
anything
it
like
can't
that?
be used to pay on that, no.
Okay. And then my second question is, so we're kind of waiting to see if we're gonna get money from the state to repay 125.
They're not talking about money. They're talking about will they repay it?
Okay, well, the road being done, put it that way, taken
Correct.
care of. So we're kind of waiting to see if they're gonna take care of that. So while we're waiting these 2-3 years, what's gonna happen if we have a big sinkhole in the middle of 125?
The village
Then
will be
what
responsible.
what are we gonna, I mean,
Yeah,
We'll
we'll
have to take
deal
care
with
of
it.
it.
And
We're gonna have
that's-
to continue
yeah.
to do the maintenance and the
And I
work
think
that
that's
we've
why-
been doing.
Yeah,
But there's the possibility out there now that the state's gonna take, they're not gonna take that maintenance work away from us, but there's the possibility that they're gonna repave it.
so
In other
we're
words,
still
we'd-
gonna have like
we'd
the
still
little
have to-
bumps in the road as we going down the actual.
we'll still need to maintain, such as filling the potholes and things like that, until we know what they're going to do.
And
Okay.
it's really, when Andy and I went with the inspector, believe it or not, this road isn't one of their worst roads. They actually consider this road average to below average right now. So,
Yeah.
I'm just
Say
saying,
drive it every day.
that's the way the state looks at it. They have a formula that no one's entitled to know. They take all these numbers from the traffic counts, to every single pothole, to every pothole that's been filled, to every improvement we've made, every storm sewer, and they enter it into a program, correct? And this program spits a number out at them on here is where you are. And according to them, it's a program nobody can have access to, but one person with the state.
Mayor,
Yes.
if I may, just to kind of speak to the State Route 125 thing, y'all know I work full-time for the Village of Bethel. We experienced the same conversation, and it has been a back and forth. They notified the Village of Bethel as well. We were told that there was a document, and they actually gave us a copy of the document. I don't remember what it was called or what it was dated. It was actually several years old. I envisioned somebody in Lebanon ran across this and said, why are we doing all this stuff? According to this book, they're supposed to be doing it. And they notified us. We had a large problem right near the intersection of State Route 125 and State Route 133. And we had called them to come and fix two spots on one side, each side of the intersection. They literally came and fixed the one spot on the southern side, and then called back a week later and said, you gotta do the other side, we're not coming back. We discovered that that's your responsibility. That's how quickly it changed. And they did, and they told us, 125 is yours. And then, so we said, well, if it's ours, how come you guys are in the middle of paving 125 in Georgetown right now? ODOT was in the middle of grinding and paving in Georgetown, and their answer they gave us was, that's a different district. It's by the district, so we can't answer that.
Right.
In the end, we were told that we were responsible for the day-to-day maintenance. They will take care of the snow removal. They still want to take care of the signage, and they will take care of the repaving. I can tell you that's what they told us in Bethel. But that repaving, of course, is according to their schedule, whenever that is.
So you could be put on the schedule, but then something else can come up and then you just get pushed back. So it could be like a never-ending thing.
No, I wouldn't say that, because they're supposed to do 125 through Bethel this year. They're gonna change the traffic pattern, and it took 4.5 years of planning, mainly because they're changing the traffic flow. They're gonna put in a big, well-lit crosswalk concrete island down by Grant Career Center, because a lot of the students cross the road. They want to make it safer for them to cross the road, and they're going to cut the traffic down to one lane beginning right there, all the way through town, to cut down on accidents, because what happens is traffic stops, people pull out between cars and they get whacked by somebody that's trying to make a second lane. But the conversation did go back and forth, much like what I've heard here this evening. What you all are asking, what they're telling you actually mirrors the same conversation we had at Bethel from them. So it's not unique to Amelia, but my personal interpretation of it is that they will do the paving on their schedule. It's their road. I disagree, honestly, I disagree with us being responsible for the maintenance on a road that they own. But they showed us a book that calls for that, and they're not wavering from it. So you either drive on a gravel road, you know, if you wait on them, or you fix it. But these gentlemen will tell you, I've told them I wouldn't pave it, because it's not our road.
That's what we've been saying for quite a bit. Let me ask you, with that being said, now, the earnings tax dollars that's currently coming in from the point of July up to date, can that be put in a separate fund?
Can it be moved from the general fund? If
Yes.
is that what you're asking? Sure, all of our funds are restricted except the general fund.
Right.
You can expend money on anything from the general fund, or you can, I'll use Bethel again as an example. Our municipal income tax in Bethel, 100% of it goes to our police budget, because we don't have a police levy.
Right.
So we receipt the money into the general fund and then transfer it to the police operations fund, because it only covers half their budget to begin with.
Would that be substantial to, like what Tim's saying, to what the previous governor called, why he took most of the local fund money for his rainy day fund? I mean, is that something, and I know we've asked this question before.
But see, I on the surface disagree with transferring the money, because once you do, it's forever restricted. So why move it when you can spend it from the general fund on anything you wish? I would only transfer it if your desire was to forever restrict it. If that's the case, then yes, by all means, go ahead and do that.
But right now, there's no firm accountability of the general fund. We are spending in, like drunken sailors, to the point where I don't feel as a taxpayer that I don't wanna pay can't crew where that 1%'s gone. If it's allocated into its own entity, I would feel a whole lot more comfortable, because the thing is, there is no accountability. Again, the earnings tax, like I said before, was generated to do 125. That was one of the main key reasons to repay 125. Well, there's another possibility 3 years down the road that we wouldn't have to do that. Well, we got this pond of money that's coming in that could be going many directions. And I know from our followers of Wake Up Amelia, that's one of the biggest key chief reasons why they're upset.
But you could allocate, if finance said, could we allocate, how often do you get the income, the earnings tax?
Twice per month.
So if you say, whatever the amount is monthly.
Well, it's not a fixed amount, it's whatever the.
Right, but if you could say 10% of that, so you're not holding yourself to a fine number, to where 10% goes into streets
Sure, you can.
and that,
Yes.
where you're showing,
Right.
again, we
Once
go
you-
back to.
Once you put it into that street
stuck.
fund.
I know it's
Yes.
stuck there, but
Yeah.
that's where we want it. We
Yeah.
want it in there. So it's not, in our eyes, spent on a $6,700 street sweeper. When you say it in your head, you see what I'm saying? To where you can say, look, we're allocating X amount of dollars to fix the streets. And when it's done, and we come up here and say, oh, look, this month, $24,000 when we're that much closer. So you could get Hummingbird done, because I looked at the streets that you had allocated to the surface where a couple patchworks need. Hey, that's paid for, we're done.
We
We're
did
good.
use income tax money last fall for paving. There was, I want to say, in the neighborhood of 39,000.
39,000.
Yeah.
But we merely expended the money from the general fund for street paving. So you can do it either way. You can
Right.
write the check from the general fund, or you can, by ordinance, pick a formula and distribute that
Right.
income tax money that way and forever restrict it for that purpose.
But see, I think that would show that the honesty and the accountability where we want it for streets. So now we're gonna allocate that money so we can show you that it's going to streets.
But the one thing, though, when you're talking about just moving it into the street fund, doesn't mean it can only be expended for the streets at that point.
After it's in the streets.
If it's in the street fund, it can be expended for anything that's included in the street fund.
What he's saying there is it's not just
Salary,
paving, it could be
benefits.
It's a
for,
broader-
you could buy a
it could
truck
be
with it,
not
it could
just
be,
the road work.
not just
It's a
paving.
broader spectrum.
Okay.
It could go toward other things, because the spectrum is
Whatever
so broad.
Street related
So whatever it's
expenses,
used
not
Okay.
just
For that particular fund, I think, right, Bill? The
Yes.
spectrum gets pretty broad as far as.
For the
Well, it has to be
Yes.
related to
Yeah.
the streets. It could be
Yes.
payroll, it could be equipment, it could be
It could-
paving, it could be
It
supplies.
could be a maintenance building.
Yeah.
There's.
But could you make a line on them, or could you make its own account to where that money is only allocated for street repair?
Street paving.
But we can also do street repairs, you can allocate money out of this general fund for
Yeah.
street repair, just in the general fund without moving it and further
Oh, for
restricting.
Yeah.
right, for appropriation, when you're appropriating that much money. But then you don't use that much money, and then it goes back.
If it's
And
in
what
the
I'm
general
trying to
fund,
say
that's
is
true.
you're kind of fulfilling a promise that this money will go for streets. We can't touch it, it's only for streets, and I understand the broad spectrum, but if you give them something to where that can't be touched, and you're not putting millions, you're putting, a few $1,000s in there, if $84,000 in earnings comes from the earnings tax, and you're putting 10,000 away, I mean, to me, you're going, all right, we're that much closer. We can get something done. Just a thought.
That's fair. That's not,
That's
That's
no
not an
different
unfair
than what I'm doing, trying to get our
observation.
parking lot paved at the church, so I totally
Right.
understand what you're saying.
yeah.
Yeah.
Is there an actual list for what streets are gonna be repaired this year?
We came up with that partial list that council's already approved. I think the next one was Woodside Park. But now that we've been served a petition to surrender corporate powers and dissolve, we can enter into no more new contracts. So until
So I
that's
can-
done,
Is
we
that, I thought that
can't
was,
take that money and
I thought that was
Certificate.
once they were certified.
once we're served.
So I can email John and ask him for that list that
You're not gonna have just Wood, right now it's Woodside Park.
was the only one. Okay.
Yep.
Was there a second question? I'm sorry. We kind
She's
of
No,
ready
we got it. It was the tip and the, it was the tip and the 125 with Chuck with the.
Andy,
wanted to
she's
make
right
sure
on the floor
you-
and Renee took it, okay?
Renee?
Yes, it did answer. And I thank you guys for answering
Absolutely.
the questions. I
We appreciate it.
If council meetings were like this, it would go so much smoother for all of us.
I don't disagree.
But it's gotta happen.
Yes.
Next
I don't disagree
Yeah.
whatsoever at all.
November, I'm gonna be on the ballot, and I hope to be sitting there.
Okay.
No, I'm going to be sitting there.
I will welcome whoever's sitting there, just so you
Yeah,
know.
I am going to be sitting there,
Sure.
and we're,
Listen, my goal is to work with whoever's here.
Yeah.
And if the village ever saw fit to remove me, I'm okay with that, because I'll just sit there.
yeah, because I wanna reverse the clock.
Sure.
And we're gonna go back, like what you were saying before, we are gonna reverse the clock.
Okay.
And we're gonna fix some of these
I
things.
have no problem with that.
And you know what, I
All
wasn't
right,
a
use
perfect,
that for your campaign.
I was not the perfect
Come on, you're
council member,
getting off
but you know what?
Well,
I've learned a lot.
yes. Tim, I'm not perfect either.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm doing some learning.
Right.
Okay, I'm doing some hands-on learning.
But, you know, we all have to swallow that pill sometime and turn around and say, you know, this is what we have to do. And I know you wanted to adjourn the meeting, and you know what? I
Trying to get
understand.
control.
I know, I
It's a
understand.
debate.
Maybe Dave, you got it.
This is not a debate.
Have you not learned yet you
And
can
thanks, you took it
control
back.
me?
But, yeah. But,
I see a campaign here, I see dark.
Haven't you and I had these
but what I
talks?
would, what I wanted to say, Clay,
Haven't
was
you
the
and I
thing
had these
is,
talks?
Yes.
turning the key off and saying we're not gonna do this
I
is
think,
what makes more people irate. And, you know, I'm not, no disrespect to yourself, but I'm just saying, just shut it down and with no answers is the worst thing that happens.
We've been answering your
Absolutely.
question.
And the thing is, I've sat
Yes.
there.
You just gotta talk, man.
was there any other questions? I'm sorry, I didn't know just.
He had a question, but I think we answered it because you said you can't enter into any new contracts, and he's concerned about the widening of 125, which I think everybody is, but.
Well,
we know we can't do
what
that.
is the concern of the widening of 125?
I mean,
It's-
it hasn't been talked about, like, I mean,
We've been talking about widening 125 probably for 20 years.
I know-
it's.
That is
I've lived in
true.
this- I lived
It's a
in-
plan.
I grew up in Newtown, and I've come through here many times when I was younger, and finally moved here, and it's just been a mess
It's always bad.
forever. Each month is always a mess.
And there's a lot, and again, bringing up 125, there's a lot that goes into, there's a lot that goes into, like the Premier
Oh,
project.
yeah.
There's a whole lot more that goes into it than what the people know. That was a 3-year working contract. And actually, part of that contract, so far, we have gotten an additional easement of 73 feet on this side of the road, all the way down to the Brown House. So if you were able, if this village was able to buy the Brown House,
What's the brown house? I'm
that's the
sorry.
one they tore down, the county would probably come along and help with a grant to put new water and sewer in to widen that road.
It's like, what the heck? You
The
gotta
brown house.
specify
I always call it the Brown House.
the
brown
ugly
house that
brown
isn't
house.
there.
Yeah, the one that's
One
gone
down
now.
H&R Block.
It wasn't just a brown house, it was an ugly.
Ugly
house.
brown house.
The ugly brown house is now gone. He wants some crazy amount of
He
money
wants-
for it.
Yeah, I talked to him, he wants.
We have talked to him about it.
He wants like $250,000.
Wow.
He would've sold it before the house was torn down for, what'd I tell you, 90,000?
Something like
Why didn't
that.
somebody buy that
And after it
house?
was torn down, he wanted $250,000. It's like, out of your freaking
Yeah.
mind.
But again, that's 3 years worth of work to get the additional right of way, which we do have, to get us to Chapel.
And we understand that because we moved here in 2010, and, you know, at that point, it was all just the 2 lanes, and then that one section was widened out to make it much easier, and it would be so much easier to have it that way all the way through the village, which
And we
obviously,
We even
you know,
talked
costs a
about
lot of
that.
money.
A right-hand turn.
We held our ground to Kroger Development and told them, in order for the Lori Lane intersection, that road had to be widened all the way to Woodlands and put a turn lane in Woodlands, because that was a very critical, dangerous intersection.
Yeah. Oh,
Because
yeah.
you had to stop in a high-speed lane to turn left. And you know, since we put the turn lane in, there's been 0 accidents at that intersection.
They're all further down now.
At
Actually,
least we're
we're now
moving
in talks with another engineer from ODOT. Apparently, the good governor of Ohio decided with the new gas tax money, if there's been a fatality at an intersection, he wants it investigated, looked at, and fixed.
Wow.
And I don't know how many people here, because I stumped some people, that we actually had 1 fatality at Lori Lane. Most people
How long ago?
had
was
no
that?
record of it. 2016.
Really?
Guy ran off the road and hit a Mallard Glen sign, flipped the car over to Mallard Glen side,
That's
came down
right.
and killed him. But we did not know because it was listed under the state highway patrol, and he had it listed as Pierce Township. So I didn't know that until a few days ago when an engineer called me about, we'd like to look at your intersection for free because the good governor has given us money to come down there and correct. And I was like, well, we never had a fatality. So I said, send me the report, and they did. So hopefully we can get that intersection aligned using some of the state money now. Not only that, we talked about from Amelia Branch to the Lori Lane to the new intersection. She's going to look at, and again, it's all just looking at, syncing all those lights through a computer system.
That'll help.
So that would help greatly. So we are looking at that right now, which would be at no cost to the village.
Hey, that's good.
That's something else we.
That's always good.
Well, I appreciate, I know I don't say it enough, but I appreciate y'all being open and candid, and Bill, you're always fantastic, have been since I first came on.